welcome back to another episode. It's another Asian Movie Monday, even though it's now World Cinema Monday idea. This is another Asian set of movies, which I've got a few weeks of this, so buckle in. So today I'm going to look at two films, Memento Mori and Throwdown. Again, I'm going to do a non-spoiler and a spoiler sections, just to make it simpler for everybody who might be interested but might not want to see this post if you haven't seen it. So we're going to go into me trying to pronounce names that might not be best for me to try. Right, Memento Mori is directed by Kim Tae-young and Min Kyu-dong. Hopefully I haven't butchered those names. It's from the Whispering Corridors series, because it started off with Whispering Corridors, which is this set of films that take place in girls' school in Korea, basically. And that's the whole idea, is the South Korean horror film, and there's like 6 of them. There was like 4, then there's a big massive break, there was other ones. So I've still got Voice and Wishing Stairs to get to. I haven't got to those yet. I'm just going to do them slowly, because there's a certain similarity in all these films. I didn't want to watch them all and say, oh, they're all like something. I'd rather watch them as individual films rather than try to do them as a series and just do individual videos on them, so you can look at what they do rather than what the convention is that they're continuing. So that's one of the films. The other one's Throwdown by Johnny To, and stars Louis Koo, a very young Louis Koo, and it's both these films are excellent. Straight away, they're both wonderful films. You're going to have a great time with both of them if you invest any time in them, because they are both really well made films. Memento Mori is more obvious in the plot to a degree, in a sense. It's a ghost story and it takes place in a girls' school. Throwdown takes the idea of a martial arts movie and just throws it in his head and does everything opposite what you expect from this kind of thing. So they're both kind of films that are fighting against their own genres, but Throwdown has been so blatantly fighting against his own genre that it's really something admirable. Memento Mori is a bit more respectful to his genre than Throwdown is. But they're both excellent films. They're both really well made films. Memento Mori, as I said, is a ghost story taking place in a girls' school, which actually makes it interesting because in Europe there's not that many girls' schools anyway, and usually we do in Europe, they're usually kind of a bit dull and a bit boring. One thing I find about Asian films, they have no sentimentality towards their youth. They have none. They can show them as being damaged by the system that's teaching them, but they're not sentimental about what the young people are actually like. They are pretty brutal about how some of them are snobbish, how some of them are bullies, how some of them are just horrible people, and other ones are getting bullied, and there's no sentimentality. If you look at this and Blue Spring, which is a boys' school one version of this kind of idea, it's pure Lord of the Flies at times. I mean, and then you get something like Battle Royale, which goes true into Lord of the Flies when they have to kill each other. It's like Asia has this thing about, even though there's a bunch of different countries in Asia of different social structures, one thing I've generally found watching the films is the view of youth is not sentimental. Really is not sentimental at all, which is very refreshing, because American films about youth are so cloyed and so desperate to get their money, because they know that's their audience, that they will pander to every fantasy they have about themselves. Asian films don't give a shit. You're little bastards, basically. And they know they'll pay the money to watch themselves being treated as little bastards. It's like it's a much healthier thing going on there. The fantasization is not there. So Memento Mori is basically a ghost story about set around this lesbian relationship in school. These two young women who are one's a sports person and one's more person in her head. is much more intuitive, much more artistic, and it's with their relationship and its ups and downs, and how one of them rejects it and all the tragedy it causes throughout the film. That's the kind of general setup. You get that from the off. I mean, you pretty much know this is where it is. It's the exploration of that relationship. That's what it's about. That's the thing you'll get in a trailer. That's the thing you'll know straight away. And it's like, how did this all fall apart? Why it's... What's the momentum and why is the supernatural elements coming into it? And you've got all these other elements coming in from the start. There's a other character who's reading their diaries, because they did a joint diary, and she's reading the diary and finding out more about the story as tragedy starts to build. And it's a genuinely wonderful film. The performances are all great, from the teachers who are just could not care less about their students, most of them. And those are the easier ones to take. The ones who do seem to be bonding with their students are the ones you really look out for. The students are all they've all got their own insecurities, they've all got their own areas of nastiness. They've all got their problems, and they take it out on each other in the most brutal way possible. They do not care about others' feelings if it means they can get ahead a little bit, or or it means they don't have to feel so bad about themselves. I mean, it is just brutal. It really is brutal. But it is a wonderfully portrayed film about, the way youth actually is. The way you probably remember your own school days of people being kind of crazy in their own way, but not in a... You can see why they're being crazy, but you just know to avoid certain people because they're going towards a bad end, and you just avoid them. There's that kind of thing that's in this film. That people kind of I've kind of figured out who the people that have to avoid in their own classes have, and they just try and avoid them. And it's just this very kind of brutal look at schools and how feelings in schools can be destroyed by outside sources, and can be destroyed by your own weaknesses. So it's a terrific ghostly film, but I'll get to the spoilers soon. Now I'm going to go to Throwdown. Throwdown is the Johnny To film, starring Louis Koo as this guy who's a judo expert, but he's hit bad times, and he's he runs a nightclub, but he's drunk most of the time. He runs into two different people. One who wants to fight him at a proper judo contest. This guy who's really annoying him because he wants a proper fight to show off how good he is, and because he's want to be the best at judo. And he knows this other guy, played by Louis Koo, is better than him. He knows that when he puts up a proper fight, he can beat anybody. But the guys are drunk now, and the guy's just self-destructing. And it's a story about what does it take to come back if your life's collapsed. That's the general story. But instead of doing it in a kind of Rocky way, where it's a foregone conclusion Rocky's going to come back and do something, this one it's much more like how despairing it is to watch someone absolutely self-destruct. So the judo guy who's trying to motivate him for his own selfish reasons, but also he starts to have sympathy for him. He wants to help the guy out, but he also has his own agenda. And there's a singer who has failed all the way through Asia to become a singer, and she's not going to give up no matter what her parents say, what her father says. And she's always on the verge of being thrown out of housing and stuff, and she hooks up with them as well, and do a lot of hijinks with them. And she and Louis Koo start to develop an affection for each other that may or may not go any further. And it's about their relationship, these three people, what their relationship actually is, what their interactions mean to them, and what's actually going on with them. And it is about the frustration of other people, because all these three people actually have a lot of decency, but they also have some downsides to them. And it's about how complicated people can be, and how difficult people can be, and how they don't always do what's best for them, and how they can be grasping for things and be completely self-destructive in ways that would flummox you. And it's like, why would anyone stay with this person? But some of these people stay together even though it's very frustrating, and it's about the actual reasons of why they are how they are, and it's slowly peeling away the onion to actually find out what they're actually about rather than where it's leading. It's the conclusion is not really what it's about. It's about the journey of them trying to find out what they are and what life means to them, and what it doesn't mean to them, and what in areas that causes heartbreak to them, and areas that cause difficulty to them. It's about that, and it's wonderful. It's just a wonder. It's definitely up there in the Johnny To filmography. I mean, it's deceptive because it starts with what you think is a mess, but as it goes on, it reveals itself to be more and more complicated, which means you need to go to spoilers at some point. But it's a very nuanced film, you know, where a lot of times you're actually watching people act and try to figure out the clues of why they are how they are. It is just wonderfully done. So both these films, highly recommend them. You really have to see them. They are wonderful. They are genuinely wonderful. So Memento Mori, the spoiler section here for Memento Mori, is basically, the story is about the failing relationship between these two young women who are coming into their own physically and mentally. One of them has become clingy to the other one who has rejected her, and she seems to, and the one that's clingier seems to be much more emotionally disturbed and emotionally dependent on another person. But she also seems to be the kinder version of both of them. She does seem to be less outwardly damaged. The athlete is much more repressed and seems much more emotionally harder to reach. And it's, in some ways, it's kind of a tragedy of the circumstances of they fell for each other in this school that's kind of a cesspool of lots of different agendas and anger. But it's also like, it's two people who fell for each other who maybe weren't best suited, is the best way to put it. Like, the athlete, she's a lot of problems that she's had to deal with before she can ever really accept love. She just does. She's got massive problems. And the clingier, more emotional, musician, who's is the one who really needs a human contact. She's not unintelligent, though. She understands stuff, but she does have an emotional need that her lover cannot really provide, which means that she goes into dealing with other people and falls into other relationships that are really damaging to her. So she rebounds in bad ways, but she's not a moron or anything. She's just like she's still someone who's working through her feelings and working through how to control herself and figure out how to navigate the world. It's just that she met the wrong person at the wrong time, and that just caused tragedy. Because she's the one that ends up committing suicide because she can't take where life is taking her. She's fallen for someone who rejects her publicly, and the story is about this girl reading the diary and figuring out where the cracks in the relationship came, where the happiness was, where the cracks were. At the same time, in real life, they're getting to the end of that relationship where one of them commits suicide and become a kind of ghostly figure. And it's about the kind of vengeance of the spirit of someone who's been wronged and how out of control it is. So you've got the ghost story element. The ghost story, though, comes really late in the film. It's not really a ghost story. It's almost like they put a ghost story in it just to sell it, just to allow it to be viewed as a horror film. For like 90% of the film, it's not a horror film. It's just the end, and that's the least satisfying part of it. But the horror elements let you go into more poetic elements, but there's just one or two little bits you think, we don't really need that, but it's there to sell the film. But the rest of when it comes to actually being on the young women as they talk and as they are thinking, that's where the film really has its strength. Because the girl who's reading the diary is this person, this kind of tomboy, doesn't really fit in either, and she's trying to work herself out. Like, she's just a typical girl, but she's always getting in trouble with her friends and with the teachers and things, and she probably acts before she thinks sometimes, and she's starting to learn some more empathy and to just think outside her own box that she's placed herself in, to see the complexities of life and how something she could see from the outside happening is more nuanced than she thought. And it's just that kind of maturity she's learning as she goes on. Meanwhile, the two lovers are trying to figure it out, and one of them has just become more and more repressed in a way that is very much like real life, but it is very frustrating to watch because it's like you're just causing trouble for everybody by being scared. But she just doesn't have the ability to deal with this kind of thing. She just and she cannot deal with kindness. There's something about her that has a problem with that, and that's even a simplistic version of it. It's just like you don't find out everything that's causing her this. Some is obviously personality, some is maybe other experiences, but it's like she has a person who's difficult to deal with for most people. And the musician one, she's difficult as well because she is deeper than a lot of the other people. She has thought more about life and about how things go wrong to her own detriment because she's not quite emotionally mature enough to deal with that in other ways. Like, she's very observant of it, but she doesn't have the emotional stability to not do impulsive decisions that will make things worse for her. So she's the complication of someone who is wise beyond the years in some ways, but also very immature in other ways. And it's like that's how this kind of combination causes tragedy for her. And it's just with these three characters, with all these other characters orbiting around them. There's a teacher who sleeps with a musician, and he's very feeling he's sympathetic to these girls, but he also can abuse the relationship a lot, and he's very difficult to deal with. In some ways, he's more dangerous than anybody. So it just becomes this, and all these other characters who are around them are actually just very difficult as well because they're kids and they're basically kids becoming young women, and they're not quite sure how to deal with life, and they make just horrible mistakes. And this film is just so clear about the mistakes people make throughout their lives, that's part of their lives, and where it leads is basically to become cynical teachers who don't care, just become cynical members of society. And it's just like I look at life using the ghost story elements, but it's about the actual difficulty of life. Now, Throwdown has that same feeling. It's about the difficulties of life, the difficulties of just dealing with how difficult people can be, how difficult and annoying people can be, how they can, you just want to strangle them sometimes. And that's what the film seems to be his main theme, is how difficult people are. Because Louis Ku's character, he gets punched a lot deservedly, and you spend most of the film trying to work out what his problem is, because he started off as someone, you can only hear about how good at judo he was and how together he was, and then you see him, he was this great master, and you see him and he's a drunk, and he's doing a drinking competition. He's almost like trying to destroy himself. He's this self-destructive urges to steal from the mafia, steal from the Yakuza, never deal with his own business properly, and just he's in this self-destructive churn that feels it's never going to end. You try to work out why he's doing it, and it feels very complicated, a lot of self-hatred, but a lot of, but every time you think of an angle on him, it changes to become something else. It's always complicated, it's never quite right, and it's like, and you, like the characters, are trying to work out why he is but he is. I mean, one of them, the other judo guy figures it out, but you're not told what he's figured out for a long time. It's like, because they hide the clues in what other people say, so you're going in one direction and the reality is another direction, and unless you're really, really observant, you're not going to figure out what's actually going on. Because that's what life's like, is like, you don't have half the information, you're trying to work it out, and it just becomes very complicated. So, that's a film about frustrations. I mean, the singer woman is very frustrating as well. She can't pay her rent. She ends up sleeping at Louis Ku's character's place, and singing for him, and she wants to be a singer, but no one's that interested in her. It's like nobody wants to deal with her. She's dealt with pimps and everything else, and she's fallen in with the worst people, and she just keeps on going. And it's like, what's the matter with you? You're obviously not going to make it, but she's a drive to keep on making it. It's like the drives versus the reality. The drives people have versus the reality of their lives, and how some people will quickly just say, okay, this is not realistic, I'll go and be normal. Or, in this case of her, I don't care, I'm still going to follow this thing up. And all those two characters almost gone from one to the other, but he thinks the version of having a normal life is bullshit, and he tries to destroy it as much as possible. It's like he's almost like he's like, I'll do the other thing, and then I don't really want to do it, so I'm going to absolutely trash it as much as I possibly can, because I'm basically going to have a year-long hissy fits on everybody. Which is funny when you find out he's like a judo master, and he's sort of self-control and everything else, and he's a gambling addict, and he's like, it's almost as soon as he gets any good fortune, he tries to destroy it. Like, straight away, anything that goes well for him, he tries to destroy it. And he's trying to work out what his problem is. And, his problem really is he's going blind. And he can't take it, he can't maturely deal with it. It's inoperable. He will go blind. And he has to, instead of actually thinking, okay, I'm going to have to change my life to get around this, he does everything but that. He almost like tries to prod the Yakuza into killing him. He tries to prod his business partners into abandoning him. He's trying to do everything he can to self-destruct, to get someone to kill him. So he doesn't have to get through with it, because it's just fear. And it's about him getting over that, and it's how painfully slow it is. Because he doesn't tell him what his problem is. And they have to go through hell before they get an idea of what his problem is. And it's one of those people who really, really frustrating. Eventually pulls around. But it's not about winning the fight, it's about just trying to get even again, to get back in even keel and deal with the problem that you're avoiding. And he does eventually deal with it. The singer character doesn't. She goes off to Japan to try and start again, become a singer. She still hasn't given up, but you can tell it's never going to work out. But she has made contacts in Hong Kong she can go back to if she needs to. So she does have some support now when it all goes wrong. So there is little bits of hope for her as well. There's a little bits of, because her father's still looking out for her. The judo guy finally gets his fight and finally proving his worth to himself. So everyone's slowly getting to a kind of place of peace, but it's a much more difficult path than they probably imagined it was going to be. It wasn't just a case of, we're going for this fight. He has to go through hell with the guy first to get the fight. The judo master has to go through hell to deal with his problem. The singer has to go through hell to try and move on to the next place even. It's just people whose lives are in total chaos. And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful film. I highly recommend it. It's just so good. Both these films are just so good. You should go and see them straight away. They are just excellent examples of Asian cinema. So one's from South Korea and one's from Hong Kong, and they're both great. So go watch them. I'll be back next week with more world cinema, but probably Asian cinema just now. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you later. Right, bye for now.